We'll do the Mamer in Maimorim Malukat. This is in Chelik Beis, in volume 2, the 17th Mamer. The Mamer is Padah Beshalom Nafshi Mikrovli Kibrabim Hoyi Modi. The Rebbe said this Mamer on Kislev Tovshin Lamed Ches. And later on, it was published, it says in the note, in the Kuntres, the booklet for Kislev, Tovshin Mem Zayin, and this was in honor of the Chag HaGeula Kislev that is coming upon us that year, the day of the redemption of the Alter Rebbe from his incarceration, which was in the year Tov Kuf Nun Tes. The date for that booklet is Tezvov Kislev Tehei Zu Shnas Mashiach Tovshin Mem Zayin. We'll do this minor. Siyate Dishmaya, Yutus Kislev, Hey Tovshin Lamed Ches. Padah Beshalom Nafshi Mikrovli, Kibrabim Hoyi Modi. So the Pshat in the Pasuk is that David HaMelech was saying that the Eibishter redeemed him from the battles that he had in a peaceful way, and that the many of the enemies were actually imodi, were with David. They were mispalel for his nitzochen. But the Padah Beshalom is referencing the Eibishter, that the Eibishter is Padah Beshalom. The Eibishter redeemed David HaMelech. But there is also the Pshat in the Gemara that it says Padah Beshalom, that a Yid who davens and learns Mispalim Matzibur is redeeming sort of Hashem and the Yid from Golus. So the Padah refers to the Avodah of the Yid. And the Rebbe is going to discuss what is this, the Maimorim bring down the second Pirush, even though the literal Alter Rebbe was freed from prison, the Mittler Rebbe was freed from prison. The Rebbe brings out also the Alter Rebbe, also the Friedrich Rebbe. Yud Gimel Tammuz is connected to Padah Beshalom in the various Maimorim. So there was actually a Padah Beshalom literally, and yet they bring down the Mamer Chazal of Padah Beshalom, of redeeming the Eibishter and Yidden from Golus, because and what is the connection so much that this is brought down? Let's look inside. So first, the Rebbe wants to say that this has a special connection because the Alter Rebbe said this pasuk when he was freed, and the Mittler Rebbe, it's in the Shir Tilim of Yom Yud, which is the day of redemption. And in this Rebbe, the Rebbe brings down in the note, he also was saying this pasuk when he was redeemed. Yedua Mashekosu Kved Kidushas Admur Hazokin Bal Hageula Beigeres Hakodesh Eloi. It's known that which the Alter Rebbe, the master of redemption of Kislev, wrote in his holy letter that Negeya Lagula di Kislev, as it pertains to the redemption of Kislev. So he writes over there, when I was reading in the book of Tehillim, the pasuk in the verse Padah Beshalom Nafshi, it was said in chapter Nun Hey in Tehillim, he was reading the verse of Padah Beshalom Nafshi, Koidem Shehischalti, pasuk shel achro, before I can start the next pasuk, which meaning exactly at the pasuk of Padah Beshalom Nafshi, before I can continue, Yotzosi Beshalom Mahashem Shalom, I have gone out in peace from Hashem, who is peace. I was freed from that incarceration. So you see very clearly, he says exactly at this pasuk. So from this we see Shagulo Sheloi Shayeches Liinyan Padah Beshalom Nafshi, that his redemption is connected to the idea of Padah Beshalom Nafshi, the freedom from the incarceration, because he says that that is exactly when he was freed. So you see that there is a connection. The Rebbe says further, move on, also we can understand as it pertains to the redemption of his son that filled his place, that became Rebbe after the Alter Rebbe, which is Kvit Kedushas Admurhem Tzoi, that's the Mittler Rebbe. And he was redeemed when? On Yud Kislev. So since it is connected to the Alter Rebbe, as he says, the Fedish in the letter, it's also connected to the goal of his son, the one who took over after the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe. She shayeches lehoinyan the posik, the Padah Beshalom nafshi, that it is connected to the idea of Padah Beshalom nafshi, even though it doesn't say a letter beferish, but the Mittler Rebbe was saying this posik, but the Rebbe said it has inevitably a connection to the posik of Padah Beshalom nafshi. Shari posik zeh hu b'shiur Tehillim achotshi d'yom ha'asiri l'chodesh. Because this posik of Padah Beshalom nafshi is in the portion of the monthly Tehillim of the 10th of the Chodesh. Since he was released at the 10th of the month, and on that day we say the Shir Tehillim of Padah Beshalom nafshi, by the Alter Rebbe, he used to say, it brought down Tehillim by the day of the week, and that the portion Nun Hey, but the Perik Nun Hey, but the Mittler Rebbe, that's the portion of Yud, in the way it's divided into the month, the Tehillim by the month. So we see that during the day of the 10th of the month, we say the Pasuk Padah Beshalom nafshi. Shari Pasuk Zehu B'shir Tehillim Achotshi D'Yom Asiri L'Chodesh. It's in that portion, so that means that the Pasuk of Padah Beshalom is within the Shir of the 10th day, so there's a connection over there. And the Rebbe brings in the note, especially the way it's brought down in Beis Rebbe, that he actually said the Padah Beshalom there. So the Rebbe says, because we're saying that there is a connection, that's why we find that the Mittler Rebbe gave a lengthy explanation of Padah Beshalom, because that involves his redemption as well. V'yesh l'kasher zeh, and we can tie this gami marichas habir v'chulu. Also in the great lengthy explanation, etc., Bahadrush, Dibra Maschil Padah Beshalom nafshi shaloi, that the Mittler Rebbe said in Shari Oira. So over there he has a great length, and the Rebbe wants to connect this, not Shari Tshuva, and the Rebbe wants to connect it, that's because his redemption is connected to Padah Beshalom nafshi, and hence there's a lengthy explanation, etc., about Padah Beshalom nafshi. And the Rebbe goes further. So first the Rebbe wants to establish that Padah Beshalom is connected to the Alter Rebbe, of course, and also to the Mittler Rebbe. And the Rebbe adds, Gam HaGeula, the Yud Beis with Gimel Tammuz, also the redemption of the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz shall create Kedushas Meiri Chame Admur of my father-in-law, the Rebbe. Mimalim Mekoimim, who also filled the places he took over eventually after them, the Admur HaZokim and Admur HaMtzoi. So since he filled their places, so just like in their incarceration, the redemption is connected to Padah Beshalom nafshi, so the Frierdiker Rebbe who took over and fulfilled their places, so his redemption is also shayeches linyan Padah Beshalom nafshi. That too is connected to the Padah Beshalom nafshi. And the Rebbe says this is evident that a lot of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz Maimorim, I mean, it has nothing to do over there with Yud or Shir Tilim, because it would be Yud Beis, so it would be Shir Yud Beis, so when Hay is not in that Shir. But still, you see, it's connected, because you see that Tzekamo Maimori Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, that several of the Maimorim of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, Maschilim the Pasuk Zeh, begin with this Pasuk. So there's a connection also to Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, to Yud Tes Kislev for the Alter Rebbe, to Yud Kislev to the Mittler Rebbe, and to Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz to the Frierdiker Rebbe. These redemptions are all connected to the Parsha of Padah, to the Pasuk of Padah Beshalom in Tehillim. Now the Rebbe is going to go further and is going to say this is also connected to the number 3. So by the Frierdiker Rebbe, up till now, we don't have a clear connection to Padah Beshalom outside of saying that he is filled the place of his predecessor. So if they were, redemption is associated with Padah Beshalom, there's also the Frierdiker Rebbe is also connected to Padah Beshalom. But the Rebbe is going to say further now. The Rebbe says that these Padah Beshaloms are also associated with the number 3, because the emphasis over here is Padah Beshalom. Shalom is the number 3. 1 is only, there's no opponent. 2, there's 2, so there is opponents. And 3 represents the peace between the opponents. So since the emphasis is Padah Beshalom, so the number 3, so Kislev is the 3rd month, and the redemption of the Alter Rebbe was also on Tuesday, so that's 3, the 3rd day in the week, and the Tammuz, the Yud Kislev is associated with the number Kislev, the number 3 as well, 3rd month, Tishrei Cheshvan Kislev of the winter months, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's redemption took place on Tuesday. And Tuesday is also the Shlishi. That's the Rebbe is going to add that also the Shlishi is connected to Padah Beshalom, and that's very clearly also by the Frierdiker Rebbe whose redemption was on Tuesday. Yes, Leimar, the Inyan Zeh, that this idea, Hashayich is the Geula lePadah Beshalom Nafshi, the fact that we are connecting the Geula to Padah Beshalom Nafshi, Shayich Gam Lo Zeh. So this also has a connection, Shageula Yutas Kislev, that the redemption of Yutas Kislev took place on a Tuesday that is double 2 times. The Torah says Kitoiv, Yadol Kim says 2 times by the 3rd day, by Tuesday, and also Ubachodesh HaShlishi, it's in the 3rd month. Now, of course, the Torah Bachodesh HaShlishi talks about Sivan, Nisani or Sivan, but this is Bachodesh HaShlishi, the Chodesh HaChodesh. But in the winter month, it is also the 3rd month of the winter month, starting from Tishrei. So, Yutas Kislev is connected to both Tuesday in the week and the 3rd of the month, the number 3 of the 3rd month of the winter month. The Gam Hageula, the Yud Kislev or the Yud Beis Tammuz, and also the redemption of Yud Kislev and Yud Beis Tammuz, Hoyu Bashlishi. They also have an association with the number 3. Hagula, the Yud Kislev was Bachodesh HaShlishi. That was on the 3rd month, so Yud Kislev. Hagula, the Yud Beis Tammuz, and the Yud Tammuz, B'yem HaShlishi, B'Kitoiv. On the 3rd day of Tammuz, on Yud Beis Tammuz, it was doubled Kitoiv. So we want to say that Padah Beshalom has to do with the number 3. We find the number 3 also by the Mittler Rebbe, was Kislev, which is the 3rd month, and we find also by Yud Beis Tammuz, it was the Tuesday. What's the connection of Padah Beshalom with the number 3? Ki Iker Achidush Ba'akosu Padah Beshalom Nafshi, the main novelty in the verse of Padah Beshalom Nafshi, who Lo Kol Kach Inyan Habdiya, Ki Im Shabdiya Beshalom. It's not so much that Padah Padah Nafshi, but Padah Beshalom as Shlishi, and the idea of Shlishi is Hu Inyan HaShalom. So that's why it's particularly connected to the idea of the Shlishi, earlier, but and that makes it all a level of Beshalom, and that's the level of Shlishi, and this is all connected. All of these Geulas have an aspect of Shlishi. So now, Beis, the Rebbe is going to explain this two Pirushim. There's one Pirush that Poda goes on the Eibishter, and one that the Eibishter redeemed, as took place the Geula. But yet there is also the other Pirush that the Yidden are redeeming the Eibishter. Beis, in this pasuk there's two interpretations. Pirush HaPoshet the Padah Beshalom Nafshi. What is the simple meaning of Padah Beshalom Nafshi? Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu Poides et Tzadikim. That the Eibishter redeems the Tzadikim. So Padah, the Eibishter, redeems the Tzadikim Beshalom. Hein Lefi Pashtus Hoinyan Shekoyi Al Pedias David. Whether it's according to the matter here, that this is referring to the redeeming of David. Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu Poda Oisoi V'Hamilchama Sheba'olo. That the Eibishter redeemed him from those wars that came upon him. So the pastors he was redeemed. Ukadiso B'Rishalmi Shepoda B'Sholem Nafshi Koyal P'Diyas David Milchama B'Sholem. That Poda B'Sholem Nafshi refers to on redeeming him, the Avshalom waged war. David HaMelech's son waged war, Avshalom against David. And the Eibishter redeemed him from that war. Beshalom. So we're talking about Padiyah of David HaMelech. And the same thing is true for old tzaddikim who were redeemed. We're talking about Hashem took them out from their incarceration. The same thing is Padah Beshalom Nafshi of the redemption. Yutas Kislev, Yud Kislev, Yud Beis Tammuz. Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu Padah Tzadikim, that the Eibishter redeemed these tzaddikim. So that's one pirush, that the Eibishter redeems the tzaddikim. Pirush HaBeizu K'mayim Razal. The second pirush in Padah Beshalom is as the saying of our sages. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is Hashem saying. Kol ha'isuk b'Torah b'gemilas chasodim u'mispalli b'tzibur. All those that occupy themselves in Torah and act of kindness and daven with a minyan chulu ki'ilu pido'ani chulu is as if they redeemed me. Hashem says when they occupy in Torah b'gemilas chasodim and daven with a minyan is as if they redeem Hashem and the Yidden from Golus. That a person who occupies the Torah, etc., and the others thing in Mos Chasodim, who poides HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's, so to speak, redeeming Hashem. We need to understand the connection between the redeeming of the tzaddik and the redeeming of Hashem. The noise of Al Hayidua. Why do we need to explain it so much? Because who says there's the connection? The noise of Al Hayidua. Because in addition to what is known, so Kol HaPirushim Sheba'osu Posuk, that all interpretation of the same verse, Shayochim Zelazeh, have a connection to each other. So, since there are two Pirushim on Padah Beshalom, there has to be a connection. That's generally speaking. But in our case, in Izesha Badrushim Yutas Kislev and Yud Beis Tammuz, since in the Mamer of Yutas Kislev and Yud Beis Tammuz, Oz Hoya Ho'inyan the Padah Beshalom Nafshi Kipshutei Kinau. Over there it was actually literally. So therefore, the question is, why would we not have the simple meaning? And yet, Muba, Bekama Mehem, in many Maimorim, they bring down B'tchilosum v'reishusum in the beginning and the top of the Maimer, Drash Chazal now. They don't bring the Pashto Pshat, and they bring down the Drasha, even though we're talking about literal. So the Padah Beshalom should be, they redeemed them. But over here, you're connecting it immediately to the davening and learning that they will redeem the Eibishter. So that emphasize even more that these two interpretations, whether it goes on Hashem or it goes on the Yidden, that the Eibishter redeems the Tzaddikim or the Yidden redeem the Eibishter, is a connection to each other. We need to understand the connection in two Pirush. So besides, since they are both Pirushim on the same pasuk, over here it seems there's more of a connection, because even in cases when we could, and the simple, it's real Geula, Padah Beshalom, and yet they make sure to bring down the Mamer Chazal. It means that there's a connection with this Mamer Chazal. Now, even though we're talking about the redemption of Yidden as well, say so for the redeeming tzaddikim or redeeming l'labonai, but the question is who's doing the redemption. Over here it says Padah Beshalom in the Pashto Pshat, it's the Eibishter. Over here we're saying that the Yidden who are Eisik B'Torah v'Gemilas Chasod, B'af shegam lefi Mamer Azal Hanal, even though that also according to the saying of our sage, blessed memory of brought above. The pasuk is also talking about redemption of Yidden. So we're not just talking about redeeming Hashem, we're talking about the redemption of Yidden. But we say, Pada'ani li ulavonai, me and my children. So we're talking about the Gula of Yidden also. Ubechidush Argos, Marsho, Shom, and in the commentary of the Marsho, in the Gemara, he says, Shashchina Omro, that the divine is saying, Padah Beshalom nafshi im mikrovli, redeem me, nafshi. The Shechina is saying, the one who Eisik B'Torah v'Gemilas Chasodim. What does it mean mikrovli? Im mikrovli. Mikrovli means those who are close to me with the Bnei Yisrael, Loshen Krevim. Kind of Bnei Yisrael with the Yidden. So it's actually in the pasuk. It's not just Li Lebonai, but the pasuk says Mikrovli together with the Yidden. The Eibishter is being redeemed. So we are talking about the redemption of the Eibishter. Harizou b'negei lahanivda. But this is only as it pertains to the one who is being redeemed. That also, according to the Maimon Chazal, it's not only the Eibishter is being redeemed, also the Bnei Yisrael. But the one who is doing the redeeming, the simple meaning, he redeemed is Hashem redeemed. Well, if you remember the Zal but according to the saying of our sages of blessed memory that we say above, that the Eisik B'Torah v'Gemilas Chasodim is Padah Lilbonai, Padah Goy Allah Adam Eisik B'Torah. Padah goes on the person's learning Torah. So, how could we reconcile, and why does the Maimorim bring down the second Pirush, which is the Pirush of a Yid redeeming HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Yidden from the Golus, if the simple connection is over there that he redeems them, took them out of Golus, took them out of exile. And therefore that would be something that is seemingly that should be more explaining that, and why does he bring down the other Pirush? So we have to find the connection there where the Rebbe is going to find. So the Rebbe says that these three aspects that the Gemara uses, that Koloisek B'Torah Gemilas Chasodim are really the three pillars that the world stands on. And since these are pillars that the world stand on, we have to say that they were there from the very beginning, because how does the world stand on? But we have the way they are originally in the thought, so to speak, of Hashem, and then we have it the way they come down the pile, as the Rebbe will continue to explain. Yuvon Zebahagdim attended by introducing Shagimul Ha'inyonim, the Torah, Gemilas Chasod, Tefillah B'tzibur. These three aspects of Torah, Gemilas Chasod, Tefillah B'tzibur, which is what brings to Kilu Pedani Lilubonai, it brings to the Padah Beshalom, Shalyodam Pedani Lilubonai. Through them is redeeming me and my sons. Heim Gimul Ha'amodim Sha'aleim Ha'olamayim. Those are the three pillars on which the world stands on. Say the Torah stands on Al Torah, Al Ha'avodah, Al Gemilus Chasodim. So this is the three pillars, the same pillars that brings about the redemption. As brought down, written in the Chidush Marshovi, and also in the Rashba over there. So since the existence and the way the world stands, it needs these three pillars. We need to say the Gimel Yonim Eilo Hoyu Gam B'Tchilas Abriya, that these three matters were also in the beginning of creation, because these are the pillars that sustain the world. So they were in the beginning. So, but how are they in the beginning when we know that in the beginning God created the world out of kindness? Because only later on, once the Yidden got the Torah, then they are able to sustain the world through these three pillars. But since that sustains the world, we must say that these three aspects were also in the beginning of creation. So though it's known that creation of the world came because Hashem wants kindness, and not through the avodah of a yid of Torah avodah Gemilas Chasodim, but it came milomaylo as a chofetz chesed. So yet, and it's only now, after Matan Torah, that the way we sustain the world is through our avodah. So we have to do in order to keep the world in existence. So why are we saying that there was these inyonim, the kiyum ha'olam was them? Over there in the beginning of Kriyas Ha'olam, came with Tzad Chofetz Chesed. So the Rebbe says, no. Afal Pikein, yet, Mikiv, on Shekavonas, Habriya Melechatchila, He Bishvil Yisrael, Bishvil HaTorah. Since the intent of creation to begin with is for the Yidna, for Torah, Tzorich Leimar, so we have to say, Shegimul Inyonim Elu, Heim Amuda Elom, we have to say that these are the three pillars that are the pillars of the world also in the beginning of its creation. Because everything is for the Yidden, and the Yidden are the ones that sustain it through the Torah Veidah Gemilas Chasodim. And the Rebbe will explain that it's retroactive, the Chatchila in creation. When the Eibishter creates is because of what's going to take place later on. But you know, known the teaching of the Magid, and also the teaching of the Alter Rebbe, even though it's originally reference to the Magid, but it's also reference of the Alter Rebbe. Shenikras Gam al Shemoy. It's also reference to him, the name, the Alter Rebbe is this teaching. Mamer Azal, says in the sages, saying of the sages in Pirkei Avos, says Dam alamayla mimocha. So Poshet, it means know what's above you. We should know what's above you. But the Taichid, no. Dam alamayla mimocha. Everything above comes from you. Chol masha lamayla hakoyla mimocha. Everything what's above comes from you. Move on, and from the continuation of the idea over there in this minor, it's understood that through the avodah of man, this is accomplished, the idea is accomplished above, even before the avodah. So that there is the idea lemaila even before the yid does it. He says, the Magid says on the verse, let's make a man in our image, that the man that is created is in the image of God. So what he says that there is an image, B'tzalmeinu, even before the Adam is created. His image is in Hashem, and the Adam is created in that image. So the Maggid says it's like a person who has a son. Because of the great love to that son, so the form, the shape of the son is in his thought, ingrained in his thought. That love for that thought is in his brain. There's no physical son, no entity there, but in his thought there is an image, there is an ingrained shape, an image of the son. Since by Hashem blessed, the past and the future is one. Time doesn't exist. So therefore, the shape of the Yidden, not on a higher level, as the souls are a level of creation, so that level is engraved, so to speak, in the machshava of the Eibishter. The Yisayim is and even more than that, K'moshen Yordes Lamato, not only as their nivra, but the neshamas Yisrael as they come down below. That level of neshamas Yisrael is engraved by Hashem. B'machshavta Yisbarach. Kam koidim shenivro, also before they were created. So you have the image of Yidden by Hashem even prior to their creation, because time doesn't lapse over there. So that machshava ingrained Eibishter's machshava with the Yid. So this also means he consulted the souls of tzaddikim, but they weren't created yet. So what does it mean? Eibishter consulted whether to create the world with the souls of tzaddikim. Before the world, there was no neshamas. So, and what was the convincing? Why was it that the Eibishter actually agreed to the creation? Is the this that it was known before Hashem? That he is going to, so to speak, delight in the service of the tzaddikim. That's going to be in the future when there's going to be the actual avodah. But the delight in the time of so this delight came before Hashem, before creation. So that was the neshamis of the tzaddikim that he's going to enjoy. He has that enjoyment now. And that's the way the creation was, with that delight. So we see over here that we have the image of a Yid by HaKadosh Baruch Hu before creation. We have the delight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by the neshamas of tzaddikim before he created them. And the same thing is, this is the meaning that they were also there in the beginning of creation, before the creation. The creation became through this the kivon shakadosh baruch hu tzimtzem es atzmoi etzalam shel Yisrael. Since the Eibishter restricted himself in the image of the Yidden Oilif nation Nivro to imagine what's going to happen in Yidei Avoida the Yisrael the Torah V'Dilos Chasadim. So when actually the Yid serves the Eibishter Torah V'Dilos Chasadim Shen Gimel Kavim Chagas, these are the three lines of Chesed Gvura Tiferes, and also the Gimel Ha'inyon the Machshav Divrei Ma'aseh, and also the three aspects of thought, speech, and action. So this brings above Oid Lifnei Abriya, even before the creation, from later of creation, but Hatzir the Chagas of the Machshav Divrei Ma'aseh, and Chochma Gvura Tiferes the Machshav Divrei Ma'aseh, and Nisavu Kol Olam Ma'aseh, they were created. So it basically means that before the creation, it's already there because of what's going to be after creation. So even though it's the Chofetz Chesed, but it is Nichlal what is going to take place through the Avodah of the Yidden later on, and that goes up above, and that is the reason later on for creation. But the Rebbe is going to say this imaginary sort of the light of what's going to take place is not the same as the actual when it actually happens, that it's in a much greater, the Rebbe is going to bring examples for this, that it's in a much greater level when the actual Torah V'Divrei Milos Chasadim is done versus the fact that it's known to the Eibishter before that it will be done, as the Rebbe will continue to explain.